So thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk with me today, Rhys.
Thanks, Barbara.
Tell us a little bit about When Darkness Falls.
Well, when Darkness Falls, a two-hander ghost story, set modern day, but it brings up lots of stories of the past, and about hauntings and ghosts set on the island of Guernsey. So it takes all this this local mythology and weaves it into a sort of two-act play over the course of a night that, yeah, sort of aims to provoke debate about what ghosts are and what the paranormal is, but also with a few scares and things. It's good fun.
Oh, wow. So what is your role in the production? How did you get involved?
So I have a very interesting role, actually. So as I say, it's a two-hander, and I am the solo understudy in this show.
Wow.
So it's your classic two-hander where you get an older and a younger actor. So they needed someone sort of halfway between the two. So it's a very odd experience, actually. I've done a lot of understudying before, but it's basically an entire play that and you're always on edge, someone's going to get ill or be off, and up you go with very little rehearsal. So yeah, it's really interesting, and it's so lovely to be part of such a small company as well, because it's a very tight-knit group of people, and we're only a few weeks into the tour at the moment, and everyone's very close, and yeah, it's a really, really fun company to be part of.
Oh, lovely. And how do you manage to keep it sort of fun while you're playing something so scary?
I think the guys have really managed to just enjoy the text of it, because it's lots of storytelling, which could very easily become very drab and dreary, like lots and lots of stories. But it's about two people interacting with one another, and how a story can trigger more memories. And it's been really fun to be part of that process, and be able to offer some input as well to the guys as they work.
Do you have a favourite role out of the two, or do they have different darkness and light to them?
It's tricky, because the one that probably, because obviously it's Peter Duncan, who famous for many things, but for Blue Peter is the soft spot that a lot of people have. He's playing the older part, and there's a lad in his 20s who's an incredible young actor called Daniel Rainford. And so I think perhaps I'm more of you'd probably put me in the younger part, but I'm looking forward to one day playing the sort of roles that Peter Duncan gets, these sort of like bumbly professors. So I don't know. Yeah, I think I do prefer the older one that sort of is told all these stories and has a bit of a mental breakdown throughout the course of the night. It's that's more interesting for me, I think.
That's juicy. It's got the juicier kind of arc, possibly.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, fantastic.
I'm really looking forward to coming to Cardiff as well, because I trained at Welsh College.
Oh, how wonderful!
So it's really nice to sort of make a little return visit, because I haven't done anything that's come back to Wales for a good few years. So yeah, I'm really excited to show the guys around Cardiff.
Oh, amazing! You have all the insider info.
Yeah. These are the bars to go to.
Yeah. Have you ever performed at the New Theatre before then?
No, that's the one I haven't. I've been at the I've been at Chapter and the Wales Millennium Centre and what's the other one? The Sherman. So the New Theatre is the one that I never quite ticked. So yeah, this will be fun.
Oh, goodness. So a long sort of gestating dream then, to be able to finally play here in the New Theatre. Oh, yeah. Wonderful. And what do you think Welsh audiences are really going to take from this, Rhys?
Like I said, it's set in this sort of in Guernsey, which is quite a rural, full of folklore. So although it's not based in Wales, there's obviously there's loads of beautiful Welsh folklore and ghost stories and things. So it's got that sort of bucolic thing that I think fits quite well with Welsh folklore. So yeah, I think they'll enjoy it for that, really. And like I say, it's quite a universal debate that they're having over the course of the evening about what a ghost is, and how sometimes it's trauma that's repressed, and guilt and all that sort of thing. And so a lot of that is very universal. Yeah, it's an interesting thing to watch, I think.
So if there's so many kind of stories going on in this particular play, is there a particular moment that you would want audiences to kind of look out for without spoiling anything? I know you can't spoil anything, but is there like a moment or a scene that you think people will really like spot out, look in the background? Or
that's a really good question, because it's one of those plays that could very easily make an audience sort of go, yeah, I know exactly what's going on, but if they pay attention, they'll be able to see the ending. They'll be able to work it. It's a bit like, not quite, but it's a bit like a mystery or a thriller, like an Agatha Christie, where if you're canny enough, so that by the end you get that real satisfaction. So I think just listen and see if you can hear a few of those themes that get repeated and go, oh, hang on. Try and do a bit of detective work as an audience, I think.
I think that's a great challenge to give audiences. Come in with your little spyglass and your deerstalker hat. And Agatha Christie has had such a long life in the theatre. There's so many plays that have kind of built what we imagine to be a mystery or a thriller play. What do you think the secret is to making a really good thriller work so well in theatre?
Oh, it is tricky. I think it's all about suspense and rhythm, and also having two little stories going on, one where the audience might know a little bit more than the characters at certain moments, and the characters might know a little bit more than the audience. So it's that little play of who knows what, and the people who are on stage, the relationships between them, of going, us as an audience, we can go, they know but they don't, that sort of stuff. It's about who has the information. Do you know what I mean? It's sort of, you can sometimes give a gift to an audience and say, here, you're in charge of this little secret, and you're the only one that knows. Not even these characters know. Do you know what I mean? That can be really exciting, I think, for a thriller.
Like seeing the gun or the knife, the bloody knife.
Yeah, I like it when I like it in a play where you see the danger. What do they call it? The significant object, or it's like something that has been there the whole play. In fact, we might have one of those in ours, but it's something that has been planted just in the background, and if you're clever, it'll come round again. I'm babbling, but
Consider me tantalized, Rhys. I'll have my thinking cap on and my specs to make sure I'm catching all the nuances.
What have you had recently at the new theatre? Is there anything exciting that you've seen?
Oh, excited. So we've had the Osmonds recently, and then before that, Bat Out of Hell.
Oh, great.
I've been playing nothing but Meatloaf ever since.
Yes.
But I have to say I'm a little daunted to dip my toe back into the sort of thriller horror pool, because the last one of those that I saw was, I believe it's just called Ghost Stories.
Oh,
and they made it into a film.
I remember that.
Freeman. I didn't sleep for a month.
I had a very interesting thing with that, actually. When they were making it into a film, there was one actor who, so when you do a film, on the first day you do a sort of read through, the first time the entire cast have been together, and one actor couldn't turn up on the day. That's like some train got cancelled, so I had a very last minute call from my agent saying, can you run in and just like fill in for this person? And I'm still fairly early in my career, really, and I'm sat there like the only person who's not actually in the film, but I'm there to read like things, sat next to, who was it? It was Martin Freeman and all these actors, and going, I don't know how I got a little ticket into this room, but but yeah, that was a great one, the Ghost Stories.
Oh, amazing. So you played such a pivotal role. You were like a ghost. You were just seen, an unseen presence that kept the whole thing going. Oh,
yeah, I always think I kind of like the acting profession for all these little strange little moments that you have. It's never boring. And I've sort of straddled writing and a bit of acting, a bit of voiceover, and I quite like just constantly dipping my toe into different things. And having those strange little anecdotes, you go, oh yeah, there was this one time. Yeah, it's quite fun.
It's different mediums to be involved with, voiceover and film and theatre. Do they sort of give you different sides or different shades of acting.
Yeah, and I think the things you learn from one thing, I got very into puppetry for a while, and I toured the world doing puppetry. Actually, those sort of skills, you don't realize them at the time, but much later on, when you're doing something that's much more text-based, you suddenly go, oh, hang on, they talk about this in the puppetry world, the 5 principles of whatever it is, and you start to, throughout the course of your career, you sort of start putting things together in unexpected ways. It's really fun. In fact, when we actually go to Guernsey on this tour, which is quite exciting. Which is the place.
Is that coming up for you? Is that coming up? Is that in the?
Yeah, it's only a couple of weeks after Cardiff. We actually go to Guernsey with a play set in Guernsey. That's quite exciting. So just those little moments of, I would never go to Guernsey. There aren't really any theatres necessarily there to go to. So it takes you around. And
it'd be really interesting to see how it actually plays in the place that it's set, and
and
seeing do you find that different places and different audiences have really different reactions to like one scene over another?
It's interesting. The little spooky moments are quite interesting in this. Of like when we were up in Blackpool, the audiences were quite, they love a good shock and a horror. Like, I don't know, it's something about the bawdiness of it. There was lots of, because there's a lot of humor in the early part of the play, especially. And certain places in the country seem to have a different sense of humor. It's always fascinating doing a tour. So I'm really excited to see how Cardiff will take it. Are they a laughy audience? Are they a ooh?
I think we're quite a vocal audience in the new theatre. I'm just thinking back to Ghost Stories again, because it's my touchstone for spooky shows. It was people were like collectively freaked out, I think, in all the right places. It wasn't just, wasn't suffering in silence. Everyone was like, and I half of it I saw as it was an audio drama because I just couldn't look. More of this show, more of When Darkness Falls. Hopefully, maybe that's given me a little bit of a shield, to go into shows with. But so I'm really interested to see how they react to certain moments. So you've got Guernsey coming up, but you've got the rest of this UK tour. Do you know what's coming for you after that? Is it all When Darkness Falls all the time, or have you got plans on the horizon?
Me, I'm still hoping. So, I don't know what I can necessarily. Well, basically, early on this year, I've spent a long time writing a musical called The Wicker Husband, which opened at the Watermill Theatre earlier this year, and there's been talks that hopefully that will have a future life beyond where it was at the Watermill. So I've got one eye sort of in, but that's more in the writing world. So I don't necessarily need to carve out a massive chunk of time for it. I can just do the rewrites and be part of the process. But so that's one thing. Please do keep an eye out for The Wicker Husband. It's a beautiful thing.
We absolutely will. I'm so excited. I love the original Wicker Man. And I love the Wicker Man remake in a different way, but it's also love. So are you kind of like, is it really inspired by that? Can you tell me much about it? I don't want to.
Oh no, well, I don't want to deviate too much from the When Darkness Falls, which I should be promoting. Right. But it's not based on the Wicker Man. It's just about an old basket maker deep in the swamp who weaves creatures out of wicker that come to life. And he weaves a beautiful husband for a girl who everyone thinks is ugly. And so much so that she thinks herself that she's ugly. And the throughout the course of this beautiful musical, it teaches her that, there's no such thing as ugly, basically. Ugliness ain't something you can see. But sorry, I'm going off a bit.
That's beautiful. Well, returning to When Darkness Falls.
But returning to When Darkness Falls.
Is there something that really surprised you about being part of this show that you didn't expect going into it?
I think in the early part, I thought it was going to be very, very lonely because obviously there's no other people backstage, or there's the stage managers, but they're very busy. And although kind of is lonely. What has surprised me is how much warmth and humor there is when we, when we finish this show, and there's a real camaraderie to it, and I do feel very included in that, in a way that sometimes theatre can be a bit hierarchical. My first ever job was understudying in a show that had enormous stars, all the way down to us, new graduates fresh out of drama school, and there was quite a lot of hierarchy in all of that. Where's my placement? And this feels like a really nice, even though there's a difference in age between all of us, it feels like we're working on a thing together. And that's especially after the last few years with everything we've all been through in theatre, it's nice to be part of a family again. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely. And what's it like working with a former Blue Peter, huge name like Rhys Jennings? Speaking of enormous.
I'm not quite in the generation that grew up with Peter, but obviously in my generation of Blue Peter presenters, they would talk about Peter Douglas, of him, scaling the Big Ben and whatnot. So I think it's he does brandish. There's lots of stories and anecdotes that Peter is just brilliant at. But the Blue Peter badge thing, you get the sense that if something doesn't go right for Peter, he'll go over to someone in a pub and go, "I'll get you a Blue Peter badge if you help my friend over here."
Oh, that's lovely.
It feels like a skill that one day we could all do with dangling the carrot.
Dangling the Blue Peter badge, as it were. Well, Rhys, I've got 2 more questions for you. Okay, the first one is 3 words that sum up When Darkness Falls for you.
Surprising, suspenseful, and curious. I'm not great at the whole.
Makes me feel curious.
I'm not great at the 3-word summaries. I have too many.
That was perfect. I'm intrigued. Okay. I'm on tenterhooks. I'm ready. And finally,
yes.
Believe in ghosts?
Do you?
Yes.
Do you really? Sorry, that line actually pops up in the play. So I think my understudy was. Do you? Is the response to that in the play?
Oh, amazing! I'm already on the wavelength. What about? I'll pivot slightly. Okay. Do you think that audiences will believe in ghosts after this show?
That's interesting. I think they'll be more open to the idea that those who are a bit more skeptical might realize that ghosts can mean a lot more things than just what we think of as ghosts. What are ghosts is an interesting question to go in with, I think.
And an interesting question to end with. Rhys, it's been a delight. Thank you for your time, and we can't wait for the show.
Oh, thanks, Barbara.
Huge welcome. Croeso I Caerdydd, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you. Diolch.